Hi, boys and girls. It's Miss Leah again. I hope you're enjoying these books. I would like to read another one for you today. I picked Peter Rabbit. It is one I used to read to my kids. And there they are. That's Gage, and that's Prudence. All right, let's get started. Once upon a time, there were 4 little rabbits, and their names were Flopsy, Mopsy, Cottontail, and Peter. They lived with their mother in a sandbank underneath the root of a big fir tree. "Now, my dears," said Mrs. Rabbit one morning, "you may go into the fields or down the lane, but don't go into Mr. McGregor's garden. Your father had an accident there, and he was put into a pie by Mr. McGregor. Now run along and don't get into mischief. I am going out." Then the old Mrs. Rabbit took a basket for her umbrella and went through the woods to the baker's. Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail, who were very good little bunnies, went down to the lane to gather berries. But Peter, who was a very naughty bunny, ran straight away to Mr. McGregor's garden and squeezed under the fence. First he ate some lettuce and some French beans, and then he ate some radishes, and then, feeling rather sick, he went on to look for some parsley. And look at this book. Oh, you can flip it for pie and basket into the fence. The kids loved that. But round the end of a cucumber frame, who should he meet but Mr. McGregor? Mr. McGregor was on his hands and knees planting the young cabbages. But he jumped up and ran after Peter, waving a rake and calling out, "Stop, thief!" Peter was most dreadfully frightened. He rushed all over the garden, for he had forgotten the way to get back to the fence. He lost one of his shoes, and among the cabbages was the other shoe. I messed up. Along the cabbages, and the other shoe was amongst the potatoes. After losing them, he ran on all 4 legs and much faster, so that I think he might have gotten away altogether if he had not, unfortunately, ran into another gooseberry net and got caught by a large button on his jacket. Mr. McGregor came up with a net which he intended to pop over top of Peter, but Peter wiggled out of it just in time, leaving his jacket behind him. He rushed into the tool shed and jumped into a bucket. It would have been a beautiful thing to hide in there, but if it would have been a beautiful thing to hide in if it had not had so much water in it. Mr. McGregor was quite sure that Peter was somewhere in that tool shed, perhaps hiding underneath a flower pot. He began to turn them over carefully, looking under each. Presently Peter sneezed. "Achoo!" Mr. McGregor was after him in no time and tried to put his boot right on top of Peter, who jumped out of the window, upsetting 3 plants. The window was too small for Mr. McGregor, and he was tired of running after Peter, so he went back to his work. After a time, Peter began to wander about, going lippity-lippity, not very fast, not looking around. He found a waterfall in a... He found a door in a wall, but it was locked and there was no room for a fat little rabbit to squeeze underneath. An old mouse was running in and out over the stone doorstep, carrying peas and beans to her family in the woods. Peter asked her on her way to the fence, but she had such a large pea in her mouth that she could not answer. She only shook her head at him. Then he tried to find his way straight across the garden, but became more and more puzzled. Presently, he came to a pond. There, Mr. McGregor filled his water cans. A white cat was staring at something. She sat very, very still, but now and then the tip of her tail would twitch, as if it were alive. Peter thought it was best to go away without speaking to her. He went back towards the tool shed, but suddenly, quite close to him, he heard a noise of a rake. Scratch, 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 scratch. Peter scuttered underneath the bushes, but presently, as nothing happened, he came out and climbed upon a wheelbarrow and peeped over it. The first thing he saw was Mr. McGregor hoeing the radishes. His back was turned towards Peter, and beyond him was the gate. Peter got down very quietly off the wagon and started running as fast as he could. Mr. McGregor caught sight of him in the corner of his eye, but Peter did not care. He slipped underneath the fence and was safe at last in the woods outside the garden. Mr. McGregor hung up his little jacket and the shoes for his, scarecrow to frighten the black birds. Peter never stopped running until he got home to that big fir tree. He was so tired that he flopped down upon the nice soft sand on the floor of the rabbit hole and shut his eyes. His mother wondered what he had done with his clothes. It was the second little jacket and pair of shoes that Peter had lost in the fortnight. I'm sorry to say that Peter was not very well during the evenings. His mother put him to bed and made him some chamomile tea, and she gave him a dose of it to Peter. But Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail had bread and milk and blackberries for supper. Let's see what that's all them eating while he's in bed. Look. Oh, that's the end. The end. It looks like he broke the rules and he didn't get any blackberries for dinner. Oh, I hope you enjoyed it. I messed up a little in the book, but I had fun reading it to you. I hope everyone has a great day. I'll see you later.